Power Pivot tool within Microsoft Excel today, and let me go through the very basic first, and then we will come towards the fundamentals part regarding the DAX. So Power Pivot is available since Excel 2010 version. So if you have ever used Excel 2010, Microsoft has already launched that particular add-in, Power Pivot, and that the new language was introduced that is called DAX, data analysis expressions for modeling and data analysis. So you can compare this Power Pivot and DAX like you use Microsoft Excel functions. For example, VLOOKUP, index match, sum, count if, sum ifs. Similarly, Power Pivot was introduced with Microsoft Excel version 2010, and there is a no limit of having the data import with respect to the raws. So you can import as much as large data into the Power Pivot. Now normally if you see Microsoft Excel version, in the one spreadsheet worksheet you have around 1 million of raws, right? And then if the data is large, it will goes to the another sheet. But in Power Pivot you can import a large data sets where there is no limit with respect to the raws. And this language and this Power Pivot add-in comes with a new language for more advanced analytics, that is called DAX, data analysis expression. So we can say that Power Pivot is basically used if you are going around with these two things. That is, if you want to do powerful data analysis and data modeling in Excel, so you should now learn Power Pivot. So your purpose is to do powerful analysis in Excel with respect to your databases, and also the data modeling. Then I highly recommend that an Excel user should ready to learn Power Pivot. So with a primarily definition of Power Pivot is an Excel add-in you can use perform powerful data analysis and create sophisticated data models. With Power Pivot you can mash up large volumes of data from various sources, perform information analysis rapidly, and share the insights easily. So that tool has also a capability that you can bring data from various sources. And in this today's webinar we will learn that how we can bring data from multiple sources. We will create a star schema as well, which is a data modeling part, and we will also try to apply some DAX in different kind of data sets. Okay, so that you can learn that how to do data analysis with the help of a new language which is called DAX, and how to do the data modeling. Alright, so Power Pivot basically comes in different Excel versions. So if you are using Excel 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019, or if you are using Microsoft 365, Power Pivot is available in all these Excel versions. Remember that Power Pivot is not available for Excel 2007 version and earlier than that. So how to locate that Power Pivot add-in within your Microsoft Excel versions? That's very simple. So I will guide you about each of the versions, and let me take you towards one very good website where they have defined each of the step that how to enable the Power Pivot, or if you don't have, you need to download that. Okay, so in some of the Excel latest versions it comes built in, you just need to enable that. Otherwise if you are using very old version like 2010, so you need to consider a download for that add-in and then install it, and then you can start using it. So let's get how to use this and install Power Pivot in different Excel versions. So there is a website called myexcelonline.com, and this is a very good website. You can follow this as for learning Excel stuff related things, but for now I will make you go through that how to install or enable Power Pivot in different Excel versions like 2010, 13 and 16. Okay, alright, so now we are here, and this is the link where first I will guide you, if you are using Excel 2010, then how you can install Power Pivot. Okay, so remember that in 2010 you need to download this add-in and then install it, and then you have to use this. So how to install Excel 2010 Power Pivot? So now first you need to check if you are using Excel 2010. So you have to click on File tab, then go to the Help and check the version. Either it's 32-bit or 64-bit. And also make sure that your product is activated and your product is Professional Plus 2010. Okay. So once you check that it's 32-bit or 64-bit, then you need to click on this link, download Power Pivot for Excel 2010, and it will redirect you towards the official link of the Microsoft, where you will find this kind of similar page as a screenshot here. So if you are using 32-bit, you need to pick this is the x86 installer, and if you are using Excel 2010 64-bit, then you have to pick this installer. Okay, so the file name is written here. So for example, if you are using 32-bit, so you have to pick this one. Okay, or if you are using 64-bit, you have to pick the first one and download this add-in. So after that this file will be downloaded, and then you start installing it. So installing is not very much complex. You just need to click next and accept the license agreement, and then it will take few minutes to install. And after installation, you need to restart Excel, and you will get through the Power Pivot add-in. Okay, a separate tab for the Power Pivot in Excel. So for enabling the Power Pivot in 2010, what you need to do is, if after installation, if you don't find Power Pivot tab here in your Excel application, so you have to click on Go File Options. So just need to click on File, then go to the Options, and in the Options click on Add-ins. Okay, and then in the Add-ins, in the Manage drop down, you have to select the COM add-ins and then press Go, and then make sure that you check mark Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel and press OK. Right, so once you follow all these steps, you will get the Power Pivot tab in your Excel application, and then you can start with exploring this tool. Okay, all right. Now next thing is that if you are using Excel 2013, so those of you who are using Excel 2013, you need to enable the Power Pivot. Now how to do it, let me get you through this awesome article. Okay, so for Excel 2013 users, you have to click on File tab and then go to the Options, right? Again go to the Add-ins, then here in the COM add-ins, in the Manage drop down COM add-ins, click on Go and make sure that you have checked mark Microsoft Office Power Pivot for Excel 2013, and then you will have that a tab appear in the menu ribbon. Okay, so this is how you will enable that. Further, if you don't find anything, troubleshoot, so you can just go through these links. They have defined certain steps in more details here. Okay, it's also depend that what kind of Excel version you are using, either it's enterprise version, home version, or the professional version. For Excel 2016 people, users, how they can enable similar kind of steps are also being followed in 2016. So again, the users who are using Excel 2016, okay, one more thing which I like to mention here, that it says that Power Pivot is not available in Office 2016 for the following products. So if you are using some personal, Office personal or business premium or home version, so might be it will not available, but I think with the latest developments in the announcements, Microsoft is making this tool available for all different users, for different versions users. Okay, so I hope that now it's being available, but make sure that you have professional version. Okay, so for Excel 2016, you have to click on File, go to Options, then click on Add-ins and select the COM add-ins from the Manage drop down and click on Go, and you need to check mark the Microsoft Excel Power Pivot for Excel. And once you check mark and press OK, you will get a separate tab for that. So this is simple in Excel 2016 as well. Okay, now I am using Excel 2019 with a subscribed version 365. So in Excel 2019, let me show you that you can see Power Pivot as a separate tab, right? And I can explore from here. But if you don't see in Excel 2019, you have to click on File tab, Options, and then go to Add-ins, and here from Manage, select COM add-ins, click on Go, and make sure that you have check mark on Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. Okay, so that will be added in your application, right? So this is how we have discussed that the users who don't find or having a troubleshoot regarding how to get the Power Pivot in different Excel version, so I have explained you. Further, you can follow the links which I have mentioned in the presentation. These are the links you can follow. So let's discuss that how Power Pivot is beneficial for us as a data analyst, as a business analyst, or financial analyst. In any organization you are working, if you are using Microsoft Excel now, you have to learn the Power Pivot tool. You can't skip this tool because this is now very important, because if you are doing some powerful data analytics and data modeling, so definitely this tool is one of the best tool to learn and get through. So Power Pivot has the capability to get the data from different sources, and these are you can have the Excel table, you can link that table, or you can copy paste in the model. You can also get the data from Access databases, Access files, SQL Server, SharePoint reports, text files, and many others. So there are some different connectors available within Excel Power Pivot. Whereas if you compare this Power Pivot tool, which is already embedded in Microsoft Power BI, so there are more than 250 plus connectors available where you can get the data from. But in Microsoft Excel, there are some limited data sources, but still they are very much handy to get or to link that data source directly and get the data in Excel. Okay, or you can import the data from other Excel files. So the DAX is a language, and you need to learn this language. So there are some categories. So as an Excel user, if you know that if you have ever used VLOOKUP, it pertains to the reference function categories. If you have used left, mid, right, trim, upper, lower, these relate to the text function categories. Like if you have ever used if, and, or functions, these are related to the logical functions category. So similarly, the DAX language has many different functions, okay, and they fall into different categories. So some of them fall into the aggregation functions, date and time functions, filter functions, logical functions, text functions, information functions, time intelligence functions. Okay, so there are a lot of categories you can explore. Okay, so the DAX language was created specifically for the handling of data models using formulas and expressions. So when we know that the data is coming from different sources or from different multiple files of Excel or any other kind of files, we need to handle the data model. So here the users who are very basic should need to learn the data modeling as well, that how to do data modeling, what are those fundamentals. And when they have a clear concept of data models, such as if you know the star schema, how to make the star schema, what is the purpose of making a star schema, and snowflake schema, then you can get through the DAX to do the powerful analytics. Okay, so DAX is used in several Microsoft products such as Microsoft Power BI, Microsoft Analysis Services, and Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. So if you learn this language, it will not just give you benefit in terms of doing powerful analytics in Excel, but also if you learn DAX, it will be handy for you to do advanced analytics in Power BI as well. And this language is also a part of Microsoft Analysis Services. So DAX stands for, as I already told you, data analysis expressions. Now once you put the data into the Power Pivot, and you can see here that the data is there, and the interface is just like Microsoft Excel, right? You can see some tabs on the top: File, Home, Design, Advanced, and you can see the data. But remember that you can't do some changes in the data set. If you want to do changes in any of the record, you need to go in the data source. Okay, so this is basically protected. You can't do anything here. This is secure. Okay, you just do the data analysis and data modeling in the Power Pivot by writing some measures, and we will discuss that what are those measures and how to write DAX. Okay, so measures. A measure is a formula that is created specifically for use in a pivot table or pivot chart that uses Power Pivot data. So you need to understand that whatever kind of calculation we will make with the help of DAX is basically a measure. Okay, and as this particular simple definition states, that a measure is a formula that is created specifically for a use in pivot table. So what happens is when we get all the data into the Power Pivot, we have to create a data model. Sometimes depends on how we bringing up the data and from where, for which kind of data source, and then we apply the DAX as a part of measures. So you can use that entire model in form of a pivot table in Excel. Okay, and that uses the Power Pivot data on the back end. So I will show you that how these measures can be more intuitive when we apply them in Excel after the Power Pivot window. If we further classify the measure can be based on a standard aggregation function such as count, sum, average. Okay, or you can define your own formula by using DAX. So if we want to calculate the month to date balance or quarter to date balance, year to date balance, or any other kind of custom function, we can use DAX. Okay, so a measure is used in the values areas of a pivot table. So when you create some measures that will fall into the Power Pivot, and you have to drag all these measures into the values areas. Why? Because it contains numbers. Okay, all right, so there are two classifications or types, you can say, regarding the measures. The first one is the implicit and the second one is explicit. So let's learn what are the implicit measures and explicit measures. Implicit measures. Implicit measures automatically define for all numeric columns. Now let's imagine the example. Let's imagine that you have a data in Excel and you have selected the entire data and you create a pivot table. Now you have some of the columns in your data sets where those columns contain some numbers, and you know that as an Excel user you drag those fields into the values areas to perform some calculations like sum, average, count within the Power Pivot, within the pivot table. So the sum and average is automatically calculated by the system. You don't have to define your own function like sum or average, right? So the calculations which are already available within the pivot tables is basically called as implicit measure, where the user has not type or write that entire formula or a function to execute that number. You just drag and drop all those fields into the values, and the numbers automatically came in the pivot table. So those are implicit measures, and it could be in a form of sum, count, average, okay, max, min. So as I told you that by default when you drag any field into the values areas, it's create a sum for you. Okay, and you can change that calculation from sum to average, count, min, and max. Whereas we have the explicit measure. So remember that the DAX is a language. When we write DAX in a particular cell within the Power Pivot, it is a measure, but it is an explicit measure. Now why explicit measure? Because the user is writing that particular logic in order to drag into the Power Pivot. So whenever a user will write its own logic, it's definitely called a measure, but it will be an explicit measure. So now we can say that all the DAX which we write, which a user write in the Power Pivot window is known as the explicit measures. Okay, so gives a name to a DAX expression formula. We have to define first a name of that explicit measure, and then we write the formula. Explicit measures can be use of complex expressions, definitely if we want to do some advanced analytics. So that could be a complex expressions. Interaction with filter contexts. Yes, that's very important to understand. So those of you who know the data modeling part will definitely know about filter context, and I will show you one example that once we create a measure, and when I will put that measure into the Power Pivot, and according to the raw values or the column values, it will adjust itself. So it will do a filter context. Okay. There is one example of the DAX is, for example, if we want to calculate the percentage margin, so we have to sum the margin column first and then divide it by the sum of the amount column. So this is one primarily example that we can customize, and we start writing our own business logics from the data sets in form of DAX, which are called explicit measures. Now this is the preview of the explicit measure. Now you can see that what is the difference between an implicit measure and explicit measure. So as I told you that implicit measure is that, for example, in my data set there is a column of amount. When I drag this amount into the values, the pivot table will show the sum of amounts with respect to the attribute which I have selected in the rows, depend products, regions, months in the rows. Okay, so this is the default calculation which a user has not defined. It is generated by the system. So this is the implicit measure. Okay, and what is the explicit measure? If I write equals to some amount as a DAX, you can say, and if I write a name of that particular measure as well, total sales, so it will appear with a small icon, or you can say FX. So this FX indicates that this is not an implicit measure, this is an explicit measure, and it contains a DAX which is created by a user. Okay, and it can be reused with other explicit measures as well. Okay, so I hope now it's clear to you that how the implicit measures look like and we work with, whereas whenever we will write DAX in Power Pivot, it will be called as explicit measure, and we can recognize in the Power Pivot that it will show with an FX symbol. Okay. Alright, so there are some of the calculations probably where we need to create some extra columns to do some further workings. So calculated column is being recommended in very few scenarios with that scenario, because writing DAX in the columns will definitely increase the size of your data sets, or a file, you can say. So we don't prefer every time a calculated column, whereas we have to look the explicit measure, and if it works exactly the same, and if we don't need to have a calculated column, we will not use. Calculated columns are also used to do some further calculation if you want raw wise. For example, if you want to multiply unit price with a quantity, or you need to calculate some tax on base of revenue or any other shipping cost, so you need some helper columns for that. So in that kind of scenario, you use the calculated column in Power Pivot. Alright, so this is another website which is daxformatter.com, and it's one of the very best website to learn how to write DAX in a good way. So when you will be writing DAX in the Power Pivot or Power BI, we write in a one way or one liner, which creates a very big DAX, and later on it creates troubles for us to understand that what is happening in that entire DAX. So to write it in a short way and as a programming style, what you can do is you can follow this website. You have to just copy the entire DAX which you have created either in Power Pivot, in Excel or Power BI, and paste that particular DAX here, and make sure that you click on short lines rather than long lines and click on format. So it will redesign your the way you write the DAX in Power BI or Excel, and it will guide you that how to write DAX in a proper and neat and clean way. Okay, so this is one of the best website you can use to format the DAX. So here you can see that there is one long scenario where you can put these are the combination of different DAX, right? And this is the explicit measure. So what this website do is definitely it redesign the way you write DAX in Power Pivot or Power BI, and it just like a programmer has written this code, right? So this is proper, neat and clean, and you can read it, and you can understand that what is happening in this particular DAX rather than writing in just one line or two lines in without proper formatting. So if you want to explore the DAX, you can go to this official DAX documentation. This is the website where you can explore the DAX library, and you can explore and compare it, that what kind of functions you are using in Excel and what are those primarily changes in this language, and what kind of advanced analytics of new functions has been introduced in start writing DAX. So definitely you will face the errors as well. So there are two different kind of errors you will see in Power Pivot in Excel when you write DAX or in Power BI. So the first one is syntactic error. So whenever you miss some brackets or commas, so you will have this kind of a message where you have to understand that this is syntactic error, which means that you either forgot to add or less some commas or missing brackets. So make sure that you do that particular thing and it will correct. Another kind of error which comes within DAX is semantic error. Semantic errors are comes in different kind of situations. The first one is referring a non-existing parameter, a parameter which does not exist, and you refer that. Definitely it gives you an error. A type mismatch, spelling is not correct or any other formatting is not correct. Incorrect number or type of parameters. So as I told you that the DAX is used to sum the numbers, but in that particular column there are some text or there are some blank cells, or you are not getting the proper format, okay, or the numbers are not in the proper format. When you refer to a column that already contains an error, definitely it will return error as well. Referring to a column that has not been processed. So these are some of the situations where you will find semantic error when it comes to the DAX. Naming rules. This is very important because we will have tables in the Power Pivot, tables and their columns. Because as an Excel user, on the spreadsheet, we use relative and absolute references, just like A1 with a dollar sign, without a dollar sign. But in Power Pivot, remember that there are no cells in Power Pivot. There are records in Power Pivot, columns and rows. And for that, definitely we need to have a strong background in data modeling. And when we write some explicit measures, we need to consider that concepts as well. And also when we bring the data into the Power Pivot, we bring that data in a form of tables, and those table contain some column names. So when we bring the data from multiple Excel files or multiple sources where we need to mash up all those columns and do some calculations, so we need to consider the naming rules as well. Okay, so the first point you need to remember that each column name should be unique within a table. So there cannot be a duplicate same name in one single table. Each column name will be a different name. Okay, then column names can have spaces, so you can give spaces within the column names. Names are not case sensitive, so if I write revenue or revenue in capital letters or small letters, will return the same results when I use the explicit measure, and I will put the DAX in it. Avoid names that have been already have been used for calculated fields and measures within the same workbook, because it will create a trouble for you if the same names of the fields from different tables you will use, you will having a trouble later on when the data sets going to be the large ones, and there are a lot of columns there. So make sure that once you have defined a name for that particular measure, you should not be using the same one for a different table. Must be unique. Okay, so there are some DAX operators because we are learning this language. So we need to go through that, what are those operators we need to consider and we need to care about. So we can use maths operators in DAX: plus, minus, multiplication, division, concatenation, which is the ampersand sign, exponents, comparison, equals to, greater than, less than, equals to, greater than, equals to, right? So these are some of the DAX operators, and there are more DAX operators available. So there are some special DAX operators. Let's discuss some special DAX operators. Logical operators. So as an Excel user, if you have ever used AND function with the combination of if, where you test more than 2-3 logical sets and you want to have all logical tests to be true, and you need to come up with your own customized solution, and you put that into value if true and value if false with the combination of if and that is related to the Excel. But when it comes to the DAX, you have to put 2 ampersand sign. Okay, in DAX, not is written as an exclamation mark. Okay, but we have already a function in Excel which is not available. For the OR, you have to use 2 pipe symbols. Okay, so in Excel we have that function with OR, but in Power Pivot DAX, if you want to make some criterias, you have to put 2 pipe symbols together in order to perform the OR criteria. So these are some of the examples. I hope you will understand with this example. The first one is with the AND. So there are 2 columns in a table. The first column is of province, where I have selected the Karachi, and I have put 2 ampersand sign, which means and I am looking also for the ship mode, which is air. So definitely when these 2 logics will get true, the value will return. In the not, I have put the province in, from the province column I have put the Karachi, which means that if my data sets contain in the province column I have 10 provinces, and if I put the not, which is the exclamation mark, which means that Karachi will be excluded and all those remaining other provinces will get into the calculation. Or means that you have a choice, either the first condition will get true or the second condition will get true, the result will come. So from the province I have put the Karachi and the ship mode is air. So whatever the logical test will get true, the value will return according to the DAX we have defined, okay, is an explicit measure. So you have to put 2 pipe symbols in the OR condition. Okay, so the expression examples, for example, if we are using a DAX which is called calculate. Now calculate, you can understand this calculate DAX, a kind of a similarity if you have used count ifs, sum ifs in Microsoft Excel. Okay, it works like that, but calculate is more powerful than that. But to primarily understand that what calculate DAX is all about, so you can compare it with count ifs and sum ifs, but it has a more power. So calculate, in the calculate, the first argument is of expression. Okay, the first is the expression, that what kind of aggregation you want. You want average from that particular calculation, sum, count, min, max, and after that you will see that we have another function argument, that is filters. So here we can put different DAX as well to make it more advanced. Now in this primarily example of DAX, you can see that we have used calculate, and first we will define the expression, that what we want as a result. So we need sum of the order amount column from the orders table. So this has been written in fully qualified reference. This is, you can say that this is being used as a fully qualified DAX because we have used first the table name and then the column name. I can also remove this table name as well, but remember that you need to understand that if you just have one table, so you can skip that table name as well, but you have multiple tables and you need to bring that particular column from a specific table, you need to mention that table name. So I also always refer and suggest my students that use fully qualified references in the DAX. So for this first specific part, let me explain you what we want. We want the sum from the orders table of that order amount column, but on a condition. Now what is the condition? We have defined in the filters function argument. We want that there is a table called customers in which we have a column province, and the province should be equals to KHI, which is Karachi. So we will get the amount of we will get the orders amount only for the province of Karachi. So it is look like sum ifs we have used, right? But when you write DAX, you have to use this format. Okay, but as I told you that calculate has a more power and you can explore it in the advanced DAX analytics. Okay, but for the primarily level, I hope you have understood that how calculate works, and you have understood that what this particular DAX will do. So the sum formula returns a single value. Okay, one important point is that if you can see here in the expression, we have defined that we want sum of the orders amount column from the orders table. Now what if I put this calculation into one explicit measure? So when I rewrite another measure, or when I write another explicit measure, I can call that specific part into another measure. So here you can see the total orders $sign in the square brackets. This is basically the name of the explicit measure which I am calling, and in this particular measure I have already defined sum of the order amounts column from the orders table. So the best part of this explicit measure is that it can be used, it can become a part of another explicit measure as well, and once you have created, you can use everywhere. So this is how you make your strategy, that how you will be using your explicit measures when you do advanced analytics. Okay, if for example, if I don't create this total orders measure which contains the sum function, so whenever if I need this particular expression of doing sum, I have to write this long syntax. So I have enclosed this entire calculation into one explicit measure so that I can reuse further in more measures as well. Okay.